Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wareham Planning Board of Monday, February 14th, 2022. As a set of circumstances, Richard will not be available to chair tonight, so I'll be taking his place for this evening. This is not within my wheelhouse, so I ask that everyone kind of bear with me a little bit, have a little patience with me. We'll start off with our roll call. Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett.
Here.
Mr. Schultz.
He's muted.
Here.
Mr. Baptiste.
I'm here.
And Ms. Gleason.
Here.
Thank you. Let it be known, 4 members present plus myself, and Richard Swenson is absent. Planning board news, we really don't have a lot going on tonight in the way of planning board news other than Mr. Swenson is not with us tonight. Preliminary business. There was a intent to discuss having a permit compliance notation on each planning board meeting to allow residents to maybe a non-compliance issue that they felt needed attention. We're going to table that tonight, seeing as how we don't have a full board, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting. There was one order of housekeeping, which is that the planning board is formally accepting a site plan review application at 3 Kendrick Road that was dropped off late this afternoon. I actually bumped into the lady leaving it, so that was around 5 o'clock. Without any great fanfare, we'll go right on to the continued public hearings. The applicants of 40-21, 41-21, 42-21, 43-21, 44-21, 45-21, 46-21, 47-21, and 48-21 are aware that there'll be a special planning board meeting for February 22nd from 2022 from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. via Zoom. These subdivisions are about freezing zoning. They don't have to be built in order to obtain the freeze based on the state Supreme Court. This does not mean the solar farms will be allowed if they are frozen. It just means that the zoning is frozen in place. They'll have to go through a special permit process, just like any other project, whether it be a solar farm or a subdivision with homes. So these subdivisions are, like I said, they're submitted solely for the purpose of freezing the existing bylaws that were before June 2021 town meeting. We will have our special out-of-cycle meeting on the 22nd, and the agenda will be posted 48 hours before the meeting with a link for the public so that they can connect to the meeting. So that being said, is there any input from the board as to why we should or should not go ahead and allow these subdivisions to be frozen with the town zoning bylaws?
Chairman, or Mr. Co-Chairman.
Yes, sir.
At our last meeting, we voted to request input from Attorney Bowen. I haven't seen anything on that. Do you have any information? I know you're stepping in to last minute.
Right. I don't have anything from Mr. Bowen other than the input that I received from the planning office, which is that these freezes have already been addressed and voted on by the Supreme Court. and that there is not anything that we're able to do to stop the freeze as far as the zoning goes. But it doesn't mean that anything is carved in stone as to what's going to go on the property. So they're not giving them permission to build anything. They're just freezing the zoning.
Just to clarify my question, I think Mr. Swenson had been working on some kind of special process to move these forward. That's what I thought we were waiting to hear on. Otherwise, we have to do a full subdivision review for each one of these.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to step in just for a sec, just a clarification.
Please.
The
Yep.
idea of having the off-cycle meeting for these is that they're going to go through and present like they would any other subdivision. And then from there, they'll work through the process. But the idea of having the meeting outside of these were grouped together because of the circumstance in which, they were applied, but they are all going to present at that February 22nd meeting. So the board have a full understanding of, what their plans are going forward. And then as far as talking to Rich Bowen about that once that presentation happens on the 22nd, I think we will understand more about the process, but the process should follow the same as the other subdivisions, as any other subdivision that we have. But I think once that February 22nd meeting happens, we'll understand more about, what the intent of these projects are and go through like the process as we normally would.
So if I understand correctly, then basically all we're doing is we're acting on something that the Supreme Court has already decided.
Well, yeah. So you are allowed to freeze zoning. There's certain scenarios to do that, and submitting a subdivision plan is one of the ways to freeze zoning. That's in the state statute. So they, if the project were to get approved, once they submit, they freeze zoning. So the idea is that you treat this as a normal subdivision with the normal process, which is why we're having them present on the 22nd, like any other project would. But because of the circumstance, in terms of most of these projects, it seems that solar might be the outcome of that, what they want to do in the future, which they would have to go through a full special permit process for that. It'd be better to just, group these together into one meeting. So, it just makes more sense that way instead of having 16 projects over one night, which would be here all night for.
Right. So we're technically not doing anything in the way of freezing the zoning form. We're just agreeing to move all of these to the 22nd.
Yeah. It's just continued until that date for them to present. That's all. Nothing's changing. Nothing's being approved or anything like that. It's just so they can present their projects so the public can hear, and also so the board understands what they're doing.
They're going to be done one by one. They're not going to be done as a group.
One by one, yes. They all are going to be presented one by one. Each applicant will present it. So everything will be fleshed out and it'll be clear for everyone.
I think some of the
And
information the way it was presented was they're all going to be handled as a blanket deal. And I don't think that's the way to handle it, because you lose the identity. Every case is individual upon itself.
Yeah. And I think that was the initial plan was maybe, that was something that could be done. But I think the conclusion now is that subdivision plan should be treated, the way that we normally do it. And that's the intention going forward with the process. So we just separated the different presentations, different projects, because like I said, their intent seems to be the same for all of these. And if we had 20 projects in a night, we'd be here for a long time. So we're going to have them present that day, and the public can be there and everyone can hear their comments, and then, work from there.
Okay, so at this point then, I am assuming we are going to look for a motion to move these, and I'll read them off again for clarification, but to move these projects to the evening of the 22nd.
Yeah, they're all under the timeline for decisions you have to make. So technically you don't have to motion to continue them, but just stating that that's just so the public knows what's going on with them. That would suffice.
I'm not sure I agree, Aaron. We continued them to this week. I think we now need to continue them to the 22nd.
Okay. If to be safe, if you would like to do that, you can.
I think that's the cleanest way. So there's no That's my recommendation.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do. That if you want to do it that way, it doesn't hurt. So you can also do that as well.
Is that the 22nd or the 28th?
The 22nd.
Okay, because I'm looking at something here that says, continue to next meeting, 2/28.
That's for the it's the a different project.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, how
Yes,
many
sir.
do you expect to do that evening?
I don't think we're gonna get through all 9, but we'll start with number 1 and move forward and just do the best
Okay.
we can.
We should probably
Yeah,
note
I think-
that we had a window from 4 to 6 because town meeting starts at 7.
Correct.
Correct.
You're right. And I did mention that the meeting on the 22nd is from 4 to 6 p.m.
Yes, my guess is that we
Yeah,
won't get
and
through
we'll have-
all of them in a 2-hour window.
No, I don't see that either, but we'll do our best to get as far as we can and, and obviously in the most efficient manner possible.
Yep.
So, do we have a motion then to continue 4021, 4121, 4221, 4321, 4421, 4521, 4621, 4721, and 4821 to the meeting of February 22nd, 2022 at 4 p.m.
So moved.
Move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Can I have a vote? Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
and Mr. King votes aye. So 5-0 and 1. Okay. Continued public hearings. 21-21, 91 and 101 Ferring Hill Road. They have requested a continuance to 2/28, 2022. Do I have any concerns or objections or anything to that matter before we
We're gonna handle that on
Vote
the
to-
workshop day?
say that again, Mike?
The 28th is a workshop, I believe, right?
That. I don't-
28th is our next regular meeting. We inserted a special meeting next week.
Right, on Tuesday, the 22nd. Yeah, so the 28th is just the regular cycle meeting, Mike.
Okay, you guys are confusing me here. I got you.
Mike, can you give us those numbers again, please?
For the projects that are going to be
Continue.
continued till the 22nd,
Yes.
40-21,
Yep.
which 140 to Honnet Road. 41-21, 150 to Honnet Road. 42-21, 27 Charge Pond Road. 43-21, 0 Maple Springs. 44-21, Rocky Maple Lane. 45-21, 370 County Road. 46-21, North Carver Road. 47-21, Ferring Hill Road. And 48-21, North Carver Road.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Aaron, do we need to vote to continue the 21-21?
That was already from a prior hearing. They voted continue that day, so you don't have to revote on it. You guys already
Okay.
voted continue to the 28th on a prior meeting.
Okay, thank you. Next up, 31-21, which is 36, 44, and 48 North Carver Road. This originally was held up waiting on some information from the Conservation Commission, which has been received by the applicant. Is the applicant with us tonight?
Mr. Chairman, Bob Rogers from GAF Engineering, and I believe Dan Watson from LSC Hydra should be on the line as well.
Yeah, good evening.
So
Good evening.
yeah, you're correct, Mr. Chairman, if I may. The Conservation Commission approved the project and voted to issue an order of conditions on February 2nd. We had previously made some changes to the plans in response to Mr. Rowley's letter. The plans that you have that we submitted to the office are dated January 31st of 2022. Those are the plans that the Conservation Commission approved. The changes that we made for Mr. Rowley were pretty minor in nature, but it was some screening of the southern array with using blueberry bushes, and we realigned utility poles to make those less visible. Essentially, we minimized the project to the extent that we needed to in order to gain the approval of the commission. So we basically pulled any work other than restoration or plantings out of the 100-foot riverfront. So when we had originally submitted, we had just under 10 acres. I think we had 9.8 acres of the 3 solar arrays within the security fence. And so I believe at this time we have about 5.8 acres with the 3 arrays. So I would just answer any questions that you might have.
Is there any questions from the board members?
I have 1 or 2 when you're ready, Mr. King.
Move on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Through you to Mr. Rowley, has Mr. Rowley had an opportunity to review the latest set of plans that was submitted to Conservation Commission? I know Mr. Rogers said that they responded to Mr. Rowley's earlier letter, but I think that was from the November plans, right?
That's correct. I know we provided the plans to Mr. Rowley at the same time that they were submitted electronically to the planning office. He had sent me an email saying that he would look at them. He didn't think there was much to chew on. It looked like we had minimized the project, and he basically, he said he would look at them, but he said, go ahead and make your presentation on the 14th. So is he not?
We don't have that letter from Mr. Rowley yet then, right?
So is Mr. Rowley not on in the meeting tonight?
He didn't speak up, so I don't know.
I'm right here, Carl.
Oh, okay.
I did not submit any letter, but I did take a look at the plans. I hope that in my earlier correspondence or comments that I did not suggest that blueberry bushes would be an alternative to screening. They have absolutely no screening value whatsoever, especially when the leaves come off. They only grow maybe 4 feet high at the most, high bush blueberries. So that's the only comment that I would make on the plan. Even though North Carver Road has very, very limited traffic impact, it nevertheless is still a public way. It's a town way and needs to comply with the visibility requirements the way that the bylaw says. So other than that, I don't have any real concerns about the project anymore. The fact that they have gone through conservation and have satisfied them and have pulled out a substantial amount of the proposal from the wetlands regulated areas is of significance. So the only thing is for the board to consider whether or not, when you take a look at the plan, if you think blueberry bushes are appropriate screening, then my recommendation is approve the plan. But if you think it should be something a little more dense than that, then my suggestion would be that if they want to keep the blueberry bushes, that's fine, but they add to them in order to fill in the holes, because there won't be any screen at all, really, with just the bushes.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question for Mr. Rogers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, through you to Mr. Rogers. You reduced the area of the array within the fence to 5.8 acres. Is that correct? That's the area that would be enclosed by the fence.
Yes, the 3 separate areas total.
Added together, yes.
Correct.
And then what would be the total area of the project, including setbacks and all the other areas?
Well, I think the only project components are located within the security area. I guess there is a transform, but yeah, it'd be very close to that number. You know, the underground electric, you know, it's not really a land disturbance. But, you know, if you want to call it 6 acres, I guess that's.
No, okay. It's just.
Am I not understanding?
The setbacks are not within the fenced area, right? The setbacks go to the fence and then the fence starts.
I believe you're correct there.
I'm just trying to understand. I have no problem really with this project. I'm just trying to get my head around.
And just I might add that there's no additional tree clearing. There's no tree clearing involved. So in terms of setback from the tree line, there's no new disturbance involved with this project. If that's what you're referring to.
Well, it's also the setbacks from the river, the 200-foot no activity zone. I'm just trying to get a total area of the project.
Yeah, and I specifically looked at the area within the security fence, and that's the number that I came up with is the 5.8.
Okay. Thank you. I understand this project and I reviewed the conservation presentation. So my questions are more of interest and understanding. Thank you. That's all I had.
Is there anybody else that has any questions? Based on Mr. Rowley's comments about the blueberry bushes, do you think that it would be a possibility that we could do a second row of bushes in between, you know, so you've got staggered bushes for a little bit more dense planting? Is that something that you would entertain?
I think so. And whatever the board would recommend, you know, the blueberry, it's an existing blueberry patch there, operated by the landowner who's going to continue to do a lot of farming in and around the array. So that was the thinking there, was that, you know, use something that's existing, don't tear up any more of the patch than we have to. But, you know, we're happy to, whatever the board would recommend, if that's, you know, staggered blueberry plantings or something else that's not currently there, bringing in something else, we can do that too.
All would be to
Charlie,
make it completely invisible from the street. Right? Is that what you're saying, Mr. King? That would be our objective.
Well, yeah, we always want to shield it from the public view. But I understand what Charlie's saying. When winter's here and there's no leaves or blueberries on the blueberry bushes, they don't offer much in the way of screening. If we put a second row and staggered them and created, you know, they grow to be what, 4 or 5 feet in diameter when they're mature. So if we put a second row and created 10 feet of bushes, that might give us a better opportunity to hide as much as we can from the street. Unless you think that there's another bush that might do a better job in conjunction to the blueberries. What do you think, Charlie?
Well, I think the only kind of a screening, vegetative screen that's going to amount to anything would be something that would be green all year round. So if something such as juniper or something of that nature, which was green all year round, was interspersed in there along with the blueberry bushes, it would cut down on visibility quite a bit. And then when the leaves come out with the blueberry bushes, you'll add to it a little bit more. But interspersing them with just more blueberry bushes isn't going to do an awful lot. Because like I say, they only grow about 4 feet tall. High bush blueberries don't grow much more than that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Ken Buckland. I don't think the idea of trying to put plantings into an agricultural area is appropriate. If we have some additional plantings for screening, they should be on the outside of the agricultural area.
Well, they'd be in the buffer area, would they not, Ken?
As long
Right,
as they were
that's what I'm
down
looking at.
in amongst the blueberry bushes that they're actually using for harvesting. Because they've planted those blueberry bushes in accordance with the maximum production they can get from the bushes. Putting in extra plants in between them is going to affect the growth of those plants. So what we want to do is
Well, I don't,
have them separated in some fashion.
I don't think necessarily, Ken, we were suggesting putting them in between the existing blueberry bushes, but just a second line of them staggered in the voids. So it would still be between the existing blueberry bushes and North Carver Road. Unless I'm misunderstanding what you're saying.
No, that sounds right, as long as there's a separation between the bushes that are introduced and the blueberry patch that's there already.
Yeah, yeah. If they put a line of like Charlie said, evergreens of some sort, junipers or arborvitae or something, and it was planted, 3 feet forward of the blueberry bushes, closer to North Carver Road, to create a path or an aisle, so that when they're harvesting, they're able to get to all sides of the berry bushes. But it creates that second line of separation between the road and the field, that would give us a little bit more screening for the people that are driving down North Carver Road.
I
That
would
would
just,
be reasonable.
yeah, I would just note that this is currently operate as a U-pick blueberry patch. So, the visibility from the road is kind of part of it, but at the end of the day, if this is what's going to be the holdup, I think we're happy to comply with the board's recommendations.
I don't think it's currently being operated as a U-pick. I believe Ms. Rinta stopped that several years ago.
Yeah, sorry, as proposed, it would be. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, Mike, if I can interject here, I'm just looking at the plan. Sheet 4, the proposed conditions plan.
That's what I'm looking at.
The blueberry bushes that are proposed are just outside the fence line.
Yes.
And the fence is 52 feet from the sideline of North Carver Road. So if they were to put the junipers or arborvitae, say between the blueberry bushes and Carver Road, you'll have much more of a opportunity for a screen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Charlie.
I'm just looking at the rough length. We're talking about 120, 240, maybe 300 feet. We're talking about from most southern end to the main entrance to the site.
Mm-hmm. So probably
That'll be fun.
every 5 feet, you're looking at about 60 plants, roughly.
Mr. Chairman, is this something that could be put in as a condition of approval so that we're not changing the date of the plans that's going to be referenced in the order of conditions?
I would defer to Ken for that as far as the legal aspect, but as far as my own opinion, I would say yes. I mean, this is a very minor change and request to the overall plan. I wouldn't see why we would want to hold it up over this.
That's right, you can do that. You can put it as a condition in the approval.
Thank you.
I just recommend, Mike, that you specify the density or the spacing in such a way that when the inspection's done, we'll know how to check it off.
Okay. Charlie, would you agree that the type of plant decided on would dictate the spacing just for healthy plant growth?
To some extent it would, yes. So when they're first planted, you're not going to see the density that you would once they begin to grow. Because you need to give a little bit of room in order for the vegetation to expand. So it's one of those things that it's going to take time to fill out. The only opportunity to do something in addition to that would be to actually put the new vegetation in 2 rows, one of which would be staggered from the other, so that you're not seeing through the dense planting, but you're giving them room enough to expand on their own. so they don't die out.
Right. Okay. So, Bob, you would be okay with that, with two rows of plantings to create the screen that we're talking about over that 300-foot run?
Yes, I believe so. It's, whatever satisfies the board.
Okay. Any of the board members have any comments or concerns?
Is there
Right.
any,
Oh, go ahead.
cat walking across my keyboard. Is there any language that we could add to the condition that speaks to ensuring that the plants that are put in place are, we make sure that they're alive for a period of time?
I believe that language, well, I know we're adding it to the new section 590. I was reviewing 590.
That language is in the existing landscape article in the zoning bylaw. And it
Okay.
allows you to put a bond or have a guarantee for 2 years on the installation of plants.
Yeah, I think with 2 rows that are staggered, it's less of an issue, but I just would like to make sure that there are not holes that are, appear where plants don't survive or thrive.
Mhm.
I don't have any specific numbers, Jane, in terms of size, but may I suggest a 6-foot high arborvitae or juniper on a 6-foot spacing? Staggered in 2 rows?
6 foot?
Does that make sense?
Yeah, the thing I worry about with arborvitae is that they get awfully tall and they'll shield the blueberries from thriving too. So. And I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know my plant material well enough to make any better suggestions at the moment.
Neither am I. That's why I'm sort of throwing just some numbers out there to see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Are arborvitae native New England plants?
I don't believe so.
So then we shouldn't be specifying non-native plants.
They're used a lot for landscaping, Carl.
Could we maybe alter the language and suggest that the plant material be evergreen and of a species and variety that is consistent with the local flora?
If we could submit something for the planning department's approval, it's just something that if you could word it in a general manner that we would be submitting a plan to them and having staff approve the type of plants and the spacing, that may be a way to go.
Yeah, if we can come up with language to that effect.
Ken, is that something that we can put in the approval?
Yes, you can. That sounds like a good idea.
I mean, even based on what materials are available, you might want to vary what the materials are that you use, which is better than a monoculture anyway. So,
That's
planting
right.
all of the same types of plants makes it subject to disease or whatever and wiping out the whole thing. Whereas if you've got a variety of plants in there, but they're all evergreen and they're going to provide maybe a better long-lived screen.
Yeah, I think we'd have some people that we'd want to ask and, to come up with the right selection of plants and to know what the cost implication would be at the same time. And if we could submit that, in the form of a landscape screening plan, then, I think that's maybe a good solution.
Mm-hmm.
So would the board entertain a motion where we approve the project with the language that with the acceptance of an approved landscape plan submitted by the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to that, I have another comment. This is a site plan review, so we need to stipulate the decommissioning cost and the amount that's supposed to be set aside for decommission. I'm trying to find Mr. Rowley's original review, but I'm looking at the application. I can't find the decommissioning cost that was put in the plan, but many of them, oh, there, hang on, I've got it. Fence removal, decommissioning revenue. Okay, first of all, the decommissioning plan that I'm looking at reduces the total amount of the decommissioning, I don't know if it's a bond, by the revenues. I don't believe we should reduce the amount of decommissioning cost by any future revenues that may or may not be received, because if this is abandoned, the town is on the hook and we can't be guaranteed of the $30,000 revenue. And I'm trying to figure out if it's it's a 2% yearly adjusted for the salvage value. And I think it should be at least 125% of that number.
Which document?
I'm looking at the
Which
application.
document?
The application that includes the decommissioning costs. This is a big deal for solar. Abandonment. And
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We haven't gotten this far in a solar project in a while. That's why I was trying to catch up on my notes.
Sure, no, that's a good point, Mr. Chairman. Through you, because we have significantly reduced the size of the solar facility. I guess I would ask Dan Watson if what he feels that well, do we need to submit an updated surety estimate because we do have a significantly reduced project?
If you think it's material, you probably want to do that. But if you do resubmit, don't deduct for, my recommendation to the board is we don't deduct for any expected revenue.
Would the board accept, a condition that we would provide a new estimate with prorata adjustments for the loss of modules, as part of our commission process, and subject to, again, approval by planning staff, and the removal of the salvage values from that estimate.
I have one other. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Carl. I was just going to say, I think I'd be okay with that as long as the line statement stated that whatever the resubmitted decommissioning plan and costs were approved by the planning board and not just simply submitted and considered a done deal at that point.
One other.
Mike, could I ask a question of Barb Rogers?
Of course.
Bob, how long would it take for you to produce a plan that showed the location and type and size of the screening along North Carver Road? A couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think a couple of weeks, just to make sure we put our best foot forward.
Would it make sense just then to get that submitted in time so that it could be looked at before the next meeting, along with the revised cost estimate for decommissioning? Then the board could vote on the whole thing and you wouldn't have to depend on assuming everything goes through planning and no further review by the board. Everything gets said and done right then and there.
Sure, I understand. I think that's a decision that the board should make. I know, you've got a ton of projects that you're dealing with right now. But, if that's what the board would like to do, then we would accommodate that, whether it's a 2-week continuance or, again, I don't see any room on the 28th. We wouldn't be doing it on the 22nd. So, it would push us into March. was trying to avoid that.
Well, I wouldn't think it would take more than a few minutes just to look at those numbers and look at the plan and be done with it. That's all.
Well, if we're going to involve someone with more knowledge than I have with plants and things, and
Yeah, me too.
then that's the issue. The landscaping plan. I'm sure the surety estimate is a little more straightforward. It's I defer to the planning board on that.
Yeah. Just a suggestion for consideration. That's all.
What is the board? What's their thoughts on that? Do you want to push? Give them a week or two to revamp and come back?
I'm okay with waiting a couple weeks. I don't know how the applicant feels. I did have one more condition, Mr. King, that I'd like to, on the decommissioning and the surety. I'd like to make sure that we add a clause that says we review that value every 5 years to make sure that it's still, the solar industry and disposal is still very early days. And a periodic review of the cost with the applicant and an adjustment if necessary as a condition. You don't have to, that would just be a condition.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a quick statement about the decommissioning real quick?
Yeah, of
Just
course.
for Carl. In Mr. Riley's letter from November 6th, he has decommissioning requirements, and he mentions a lot of things that you're mentioning, Carl, like the 5-year review and the 125%. So if you go back and look at that, but the board can, you can take a look at the points that he made in there, and I think that might help with some things you have questions about currents of decommissioning and things like that.
Thank you. I was trying to reach back into my mind. I remembered that Charlie had written that up and that they hadn't been brought forward to this plan.
Yeah, he mentioned 4 points in there, and a couple of things that you mentioned are in that letter as well. So
The 5-year review has been a standard condition that approved projects up to this date have included, so that's not unusual.
It's just not in their application, so we would have to write it somewhere, right?
Well, if I may, we will have to have a formal agreement executed with the town when we actually put up the decommissioning surety. So there will be, that would be in there, and the 5-year review would be in there. All of that would have to go into that agreement once we actually formally execute it. Sure.
Good. I just don't want to forget it.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, with that being said, are there any other questions before we move to continue this until the, Bob, you said the 28th is what you'd want?
Well, I'm assuming that you wouldn't have time for us on the 28th. I also see one hand raised, Mr. Chairman, and I just want to make sure that if there's any public comment, we allow that before we move forward.
Of course. Yeah, Aaron, can you activate Nancy McKill's microphone so she can speak, please?
Mr. Chair, through you, I know that the Concom has voted to approve that the order of conditions or the notice of intent for this, but I don't know that the order of conditions has been issued yet. And since it was not a unanimous decision, it may behoove this board to wait again until those orders are available to you and that you've all read them. There may be something in there else that you might want to ask or not. I just wanted to see if this board had actually read those, because this is in such a sensitive riverfront area, just to make sure that those I's are dotted and T's are crossed for the duration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, has the report from Conservation made it to the planning board's office?
There hasn't been anything that we've received in on the planning side of the office.
Yeah, it's only been it's been less than 2 weeks, so I would expect it to take another week or two before they would issue it, but I don't recall any any special conditions other than the standard special. But if that's the way we're
Well,
headed, I guess the 28th would be the best for us if you have time that evening.
The chairman, through you to the planning office, Aaron or Ken, can we remind Dave that for a site plan review, we need one of 4 forms of notification from Conservation Commission before voting to approve? I forget what there's a letter. I'll find the section in the bylaw if you need it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Dave tomorrow when I get into the office, and I'll make sure, or check to make sure we have some sort of notice from him in terms of those 4 things you were talking about. But I can talk to Dave tomorrow.
Thank you. Then we'll have all our T's dotted and I's crossed, or I's dotted and T's, whichever.
Okay, with that being said, then Bob, you're gonna formally request a continuance till the 28th?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we respectfully request a continuance to February 28th.
Okay, and
If you'd like, I could
Is
send an
board,
email to
I was just gonna say, once has voted on that and approved it, then I would request you send an email to Ken or Aaron.
I will do so.
All right, thank you. I appreciate everybody's patience too, by the way. I know I'm kind of fractured in what I'm doing. I'm trying to do my best here. So I thank you very much for your patience. Okay,
Doing
so
great, Graham.
entertain. I'm sorry?
You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you very much. So I'll entertain a vote by the board to continue site plan review 31-21, 36, 44, and 48 North Carver Road to the planning board meeting of February 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is moved by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. So now we will vote. Mr. Corbett,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yeah.
Mr. Baptiste,
Yes.
Ms. Gleason,
Yes.
and Mr. King votes aye. So 5-0 and 1.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, definitive subdivision plan for 32-21, 36, 42, and 48 Robinwood Road. The board and the applicant have reviewed a draft certificate of approval. We would suggest, let's see here, I just am reading my notes. Discuss any changes and take public input and possibly even bring this public hearing to a close. So anybody here for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Bob Rogers with GAF Engineering. And
And Attorney Tom Gay's here as well.
Okay. So Bob, if you want to start this off with what you have going on, what's been changed, what hasn't?
So there have not been any changes on the plans. Our plans were dated January 18th, 2022. And at the night of the last hearing on January 24th, we had received a positive letter from Mr. Rowley recommending approval of the project. I believe we were continued to this evening in large part because of some of the material was posted the day of the hearing, and some of the butters had concerns that they hadn't had time to look at that. From my standpoint, I believe there's 3 things. We're looking for approval of the street name or approval of a change to the street name. I had an email from Mr. Buckland that to the effect that Maritime Row is too close to Maritime Drive, which is physically on the other side of town. There was correspondence regarding surety and a covenant. And so I know I need to put just a sentence on the recordable lotting sheet that the project is subject to a covenant to be recorded herewith. And I guess we have the draft certificate of approval. I noticed one minor correction on our recordable lotting sheet. It still references 20-foot wide pavement. It needs to be changed to 18. So I think, once we make those minor changes on the plans, we would have a date certain on the plans. We certainly, would ask that the public hearing be closed tonight, and that we would move forward and, get the street name straightened out. Certainly. I don't know if Tom has anything to add.
No, I mean, I think we've had, a good amount of hearings on this project. And I hope, we're at a point where we can, get to the finish line. And as Bob said, we really just need to check off a couple boxes with respect to the road, and then a couple minor little more Scrivener's changes to the plan. So hopefully, we can finish up the public input tonight and close the public hearing and work on the certificate of approval.
Charlie, I'm reading your letter or your review, and I see the waiver of the 150-foot lot shape factor. Can you expand on that? What exactly it is that you're concerned about with that?
No, Mr. Chairman, if I may, at the last public hearing, the board voted individually on each of the waiver requests and voted to approve them all. That was accomplished at the last public hearing on the 24th.
I was not here for that.
So
okay. All right. So what I did see today, what came in today was a couple more of residents' letters and concerns. Before we get to the street name request, do we feel that it would be best to let the residents who have something to say concerning this have their say before we consider closing the public?
Before we go to the public, I do have a question for the applicant.
Of course, go ahead.
Through you to Mr. Gay. One of the other reasons we continued last meeting was to give you time to meet with Attorney Friedman to try and address some of the, but particularly I think Miss Aaron's concerns. Did that meeting happen? And just based on her letter, I'm guessing it wasn't very positive.
Nope. So I can answer that. We did not have the opportunity to meet. We were trying to pick a date, and scheduling was relatively limited. At the end of last week, I had sent a few emails to Miss Aaron's attorney. I believe I received a out of the office response. So we were not able to meet. I did have a chance to read her letter, which came from her and not from her attorney. And a lot of the issues that she has spotted have been spoken to this board at, one of our 7 previous public hearings. And many of them are outside of, the scope of what you would be looking at, or have been completely disproven by Mr. Rogers or Mr. Rowley through their review, specifically traffic and sight lines and the need for a traffic study. There's a lot in there that's, in my opinion, is just not necessarily relevant or pertinent, or has been discussed and delivered. And I think we've passed those questions and those points. And I believe Mr. Rowley is satisfied with the plan and the design. I hope the board is satisfied with the plan and the design. And, to go back to the very beginning, when we had our preliminary meeting, we do want to be good neighbors to the community. We did have that outreach meeting. We've been, open, and this has been a very deliberate and prolonged process. So, I would hope that we can get to a point where we can, move this to the finish line.
You answered my question. You were unable to meet with the Ms.
Yes,
Aaron's
correct.
Any other questions from the board before we open it up to the public for comment?
Mike, I have one comment. Can we have a deadline of like Thursday at noon where these people can bring these comments in? We got them this afternoon, one was at 3:41, the other one I think was later.
Yeah.
I mean, getting them the day of
I
is not
actually,
helpful. I mean, if I'm in the office, I got to get home,
Yep.
have dinner,
yeah.
get here. I may not have a chance to read them. I think if it'd be a favor to the
No,
applicant as well,
I-
to have a deadline of say Thursday at noon, something like that. I mean, we've run into this time and time
Yeah.
again.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, when I met with Ken this afternoon in the planning office, that very subject came up because I found myself doing speed reading on items that were sent in like at the 11th hour, and I don't agree with it. It forces us into a corner that I'm not comfortable with. So Ken and I both agreed that we're going to try to put together some sort, I don't want to use the word deadline, but some sort of a stopping point that says anything received after X number of hours prior to the meeting won't be considered as information for that meeting.
I agree. What's wrong with the deadline?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the softy in me. I never was really crazy about that word, but we could certainly use it.
All right, something better than nothing.
Yeah,
Chairman,
absolutely.
I did have a chance to quickly review the letters that came in, and my opinion is that no new material facts were introduced. Similar concerns were raised again, but I didn't see anything new. That's my opinion, but I didn't see anything new.
I agree 100%, Carl. I read it myself. Like I said, it was at the 11th hour, and I was reading it at my desk instead of actually doing my job, which I wasn't particularly pleased about. But I agree, there was nothing new in there that we haven't already discussed. Any other comments or concerns before we open it up to public comment? Nope. Hearing none. If there is somebody from the public that wishes to weigh in and bring something new to the conversation, and please try not to rehash information that we have already talked about or it's been introduced in letter form, we'd appreciate it. So I see Marlene Aaron's hand up. If Aaron, if you could make it so that she should speak with us.
I'm not able to unmute her, so you have to do yourself. I can mute her, but I can't unmute her. There you go. Should be good.
Yeah. Oh, there she is.
Yes, some of the things that I wrote in the letter, which I had sent to the planning board on Friday at noon, they posted it today. But the reason that they come up again is because I'm not getting any answers. So I will skip over the driveway that comes onto Robinwood for that safety factor, but here's some new things. When I read the subdivision rules and regulations, it talks about open space. And it says that the planning board can require a park or a playground for recreation purposes. That's in the subdivision rules. So I want to know if this was even thought about. This is a commercial subdivision with 7 homes, and Robinwood Road does not have one park anywhere that I'm aware of. So that's something, new, and what other considerations were given
to the area residents. It says right in there that you're supposed to give consideration to the people who live there. There's also a question about, was there going to be an easement from this subdivision onto the water? My concern is that they put an easement close to my bedroom window or to the other abutter. At one point, the architect had told me that it was going to go through the middle, but I haven't seen that. Then, the waivers, yes, we've talked about those, but I want to know, the examples that Attorney Gay cited, were those with areas that flooded, or were those, when you did the waiver, are we comparing apples to apples? I'm very, very concerned about the flooding. So if this board says yes to those waivers and they're wrong, did you look at examples that were good examples or not? My other question was, this traffic study, and there is a typo, it's 2021 that they did the traffic study. I think that what the board is going to do is create a precedent that developers can come in and say, there's no traffic, because there is no traffic. In November, Robinwood Road is pretty dead. During COVID, it's even worse. But that's what, they're basing, your decisions on. So are other developers going to come and say, sure, we can go do our, November traffic study, because the landscapers aren't there, the delivery trucks aren't there, the guests, the people who are year-round people, myself, we're not there. So I'm sorry if I bring that up again, but I'm still not happy that I've heard an answer that, satisfies what you're supposed to be making a good decision on, that we're going to have to live with. Then the other thing too is, the Conservation Commission does have to rule in on this bullfrog pond that was illegally filled in. They told me they saw it in 2009 on Google Earth, and on 2011, it was gone. Now I know the developers didn't do it, but it's still something to do with wetlands protection, because people are not allowed just to fill in and kill natural habitat. Then I wanted to find out, is there going to be a deed restriction about solar? So, because is my solar, $125,000 deck going to be blocked by a 35-foot house next door? Is that going to be on there? Just not getting any answers. Okay, and then design standards, that's from the bylaws. It talks about that the design shall reduce to the extent reasonably possible the following. And it talks about the number of mature trees removed. Has anybody talked about that? And it says right in here, the impact to a budding neighborhood. Sorry, but it's just not, I'm not getting any answers. And then there's an encroachment. I can see it on the plan that it's either 1.3 or 13 foot, the seawall onto my property. Is that supposed to be talked about, or is the definitive plan just gets approved with an encroachment? Nobody's talked about road mitigation funds, street lights along Robinwood Road. After these trucks and heavy equipment tear up the road, what happens? And then the plan, is supposed to show the abutters across the street. Plan does not. And I tried to find the woman. I couldn't find her, but it said that, they're supposed to give you a list that shows that they've gotten in touch with every single abutter. Well, if she's not on the plan, I don't think that they even, they found her either. And
Okay.
I really want to get a second opinion on the drainage. First they came up with the rain garden, okay, whatever it was, and then it disappeared after they did the stormwater report. But that's on my side. Now they have Caltex, 4 of them on the other side. I'm not an engineer, but I have common sense. How can the rainwater that was rain garden that was supposed to be, the answer to all the drainage disappear, and then everything goes the other way? I want to hire my own engineer, and I want a second opinion, because I don't think that this project is going to end up being flood-free. Then there's the drainage, the catch basin drainage.
that's right, it's not really in front of the carriage house, but it's going toward that. And it's marked unknown. And I think we need to know, where does that water go? If it's part of drainage, we're supposed to know. And that's what Mr. Buckland told me. We're supposed to know if it's part of drainage. To leave it marked unknown potentially brings water off of Robinwood Road right into that area. And that's where the people from Sayers Point need to leave. That's their only road. So if the water's all going to end up over there with ice and flooding.
Okay.
Where it went. I'm almost done.
Miss Aaron, if you could respectfully just kind of wrap it up, please.
I am. I'm just going to ask that the planning board deny this definitive plan. It's not ready. It's ill-conceived and there's too many rules and regulations that it does not abide by. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your input. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't understand the acronym, but LTTD, maybe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thomas Donahue, 12 Sayers Point Road. A process question. At the last Conservation Commission hearing, Chair Slavin advised the applicant that it was a commercial development to the number of houses. And she asked to have them come back with a plan with a 50-foot setback for a no disturb zone, not a 30-foot. And the applicant said they would. So the question is, if we're dealing with I think it was version 3, January 18th, what plan will you be bringing in to the Conservation Commission in 48 hours? Is that going to be a different plan?
That's a question I can't answer. I was not aware of the fact that the Conservation Commission weighed in and considered this a commercial project.
It's
I don't.
Can I clarify, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
So we were due back before the Conservation Commission on February 2nd, and unfortunately it was just a clerical error. The project wasn't listed on their agenda, so we couldn't have a hearing. Our continued hearing with Conservation will be this coming Wednesday night, the 16th. In the bylaw, the wetland bylaw that the town has, there is a residential buffer zone of 30 feet for residential projects of fewer than 4 units. And so the commercial industrial no activity buffer is a 50-foot. And so the connection is that if you have a residential project of 4 or more units, then you're required to abide by the commercial no activity zone setback of 50 feet. So we are not considered in any way, shape, or form a commercial project. This is a 7-lot residential subdivision. And so we, on the erosion and sedimentation control plan, we changed the 30-foot no activity zone to a 50-foot no activity zone. And so to prove to the commission that none of the roadway work, utilities, drainage, that none of that work there's no impact on that zone from this Form C subdivision. There are 2 lots, lot 48 and lot 52, which we'll have a discussion with the commission when we get to those individual lot notices of intent. So, thank you.
Okay.
So there'll be different plans submitted. So this plan, if it's signed tonight and goes to the registry of deeds and recorded, is going to be a different plan from the one in 48 hours at the Conservation Commission. I just thought it would have to go by the Mr. Riley, the peer engineer, for the planning board before they would file their plan at the registry.
As I said before, there are those other changes. So we need to get a decision on the street name so that we can add that to the plan, and the reference to the covenant and the 18-foot. But we already put the 50-foot no activity on for Conservation Commission's review. That'll
Okay,
be Wednesday night.
So our plan we're working on tonight, the January
Yeah.
18th plan, doesn't match the conservation plan.
I think a point of reference and clarification is what Mr. Rogers is speaking to with this buffer zone is a conservation related issue. It's not a subdivision related issue in the sense that the conservation wants to see this no touch zone on there. And as Mr. Rogers said, that plan has been updated. This plan with the planning board will be updated because the road name needs to be on there, but nothing on that plan physically is changing other than another delineation line. So it's not changing anything that the planning board would be looking at or considering in their decision tonight.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, and I concur and agree with Marlene Aaron's 3-page letter she submitted last week. Thank you.
thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who would like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, just one comment with respect to the drainage. Ms. Aronson mentioned that a landscape or bioretention area was removed from the initial plan, and that was done purposely based on one of my initial reviews of that plan. And as a result of that, the road profile and the road drainage system was changed completely. Had it not been changed, there would have been the possibility for a puddle within the road, and there was no way for the water to escape from that swale. So that was changed in order to provide for subsurface drainage in a completely different way. So the fact that that swale is no longer the same as what was on the original plan was done on purpose so as to eliminate the potential for that not being able to escape and for the potential for having a perennial puddle in the middle of the road. So that issue should not be considered any longer. It's not a part of the plan, and it's not a part of it on purpose.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other input from abutters or concerned citizens before we move forward? Okay, hearing none. I move to close the public comment on this project before we move on to the street name and covenant discussions. Do I have a motion?
Is there any further input before from either the staff or that you need before you close it?
Well, I just asked for any other comment.
Yeah, okay.
So hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Let's take a vote. Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Hey,
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
and Mr. King votes aye, 501. Having closed the public hearing, we can move on to the subject of the street name. So we're looking for a proposed street name of Pleasant Harbor Drive. Have you been in contact with the town concerning that name and its appropriateness and availability?
Is that a question for Ken?
That was a question for you.
Oh, for me? Well, we submitted the form, and so, as soon as I found out that Maritime Row was unacceptable, I filled out an additional form and I submitted it, and so I have not heard anything one way or the other.
Ken, has the planning board heard from anybody on this?
Nope.
No, the planning board has not heard it from the fire department and emergency services yet on this one.
So hearing that, I can't see how we would be able to move forward with a vote of approval on that, would we?
That's who you want to have know the roads.
Say that, I'm sorry, say that again, Ken?
Emergency services are the ones you want to have okay, the
Correct.
names of the road so they know where they're going.
Right, but where we haven't had that input from them, the board really can't act on this street name request, can we?
I think it would be inappropriate.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So I think we need to table that until we get input from the proper departments here in town on that. Okay, what else is it that we need to address?
I think at this point, it's just going to be finishing up the certificate of approval and getting that comment from about the street name. I know there's been some comments from the board on certificate and Charlie as well and Ken. And I sent it to the applicant. So get that shored up. And then just working on the covenant within this next couple weeks too, to make sure that's complete. And any last updates that have to be done to the subdivision plan, the Milo that will be signed, adding that to the COA, make sure that's good. And then from there, you should be able to make a vote on the certificate of approval, and then we'll get that signed. But that would have to be done at the next meeting, so you could continue it and, upon a vote at the next meeting.
All right. Hearing that, does anybody have any concerns with continuing this to the 28th? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to continue definitive subdivision plan 32-21 for 364248 Robinwood Road to the next planning board meeting of February 28th.
Moved.
Yeah.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett? We'll vote on that. Mr. Corbett?
I think he said aye. His mic's just muted. Couldn't hear.
No. Okay. Mr. Schultz?
Aye on the continuance.
Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
Aye.
And Mr. King votes aye, 501. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you need an email or an extension request or anything from us to sign?
Yeah, Bob, you can send me an email.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see here. 33-21 site plan review for 0 Route 25. There was a late request to the planning office for a continuance. So that one will be continued. Should we continue that to the 28th, or shouldn't that be included in the 22nd meeting?
Are you asking me, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, where we're dealing with the, well, no, actually, no. Okay, so we should be continuing that to the 28th, right?
I think the 28th is a more appropriate date because this requires a meeting with town council.
Correct, okay. So entertain a motion to continue site plan review 33-21 for 0 Route 25 to the next planning board meeting of February 28th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, second by Mr. Corbett. Vote, Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Yes.
and Mr. King votes aye, 501. Item number 5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 5, 36-21, modification to a special permit site plan review for the Bay Point Club. Is the applicant here or their representatives?
They requested a continuance at the last minute as well for that project. They sent it into the planning office right before I stepped out. So that one also
Okay.
was continued.
Do we have room for the 28th for all these continuances, or are we
No.
setting ourselves up for a problem?
Well, now that we're as far as I think Rodwin Road, it's just going to be a vote without public comment, and also we talked about for 31-21, that one I think will go by a little bit quicker as well. But I think this is just, I think there'll have to be room for it. So I would suggest continuing it until then.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the planning office, are we going to discuss the 28th will be our last chance to submit bylaw updates. Are we proposing any bylaw updates? I'm not sure if the solar study committee is going to get their bylaw to you in time, but there will need to be at least a review by the we were looking at Article 15. I don't know if we're going to do a bylaw update for Article 15. If the solar bylaw committee gets done, it'll be Article 16, Article 3, and Section 590. We don't have to have the public hearing that night, is my understanding of the process, but the planning board would need to review those bylaws if they get to us in time, and vote to whether we were going to submit those warrants by March 1st.
I think that Article 15 is in good shape and could be sent out to the planning board at this time for you to review and to okay on the 28th.
Okay, and what about, Ken, I know you were doing updates for, I don't know if the solar bylaw committee is going to be ready, so let's set that aside. So we would need on the 28th to look at Article 15, and you were working on language.
Article 14 as well.
Yeah, are you going to be ready for that?
I'm going to be ready. I don't know if the planning board is going to be ready though.
Yeah, but if we miss the 28th, then we don't get it into that's our last chance. I mean, we have to submit it that night.
The potential is we have a special town meeting as well.
Okay, and which gives us what, one more meeting?
Yeah, it gives you another meeting to put something in.
Okay, I'm just talking about the agenda. I'm not even trying to.
I think we should just concentrate on Article 15 at this point.
Excellent. And what about, I never heard back from Chairman Swenson about my proposal. I wanted the planning board to discuss a moratorium on utility grade battery storage systems.
You could bring that up right now at the end of this meeting and have it considered as on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
That would be simple to write. That wouldn't be hard to produce and prepare.
I submitted a draft. Did you get a chance to look? Well, we'll talk about it at the end. Mr. King, if you would add a note for me at the end to talk about a bylaw item.
Yes, sir, I will. Yep. So having the request for continuance, I'd entertain a motion to continue 36-21 Bay Point Club to the next scheduled meeting of February 28th.
So moved.
Second. Sam beat me this time.
Motion by Mr. Corbett, second by Mr. Schultz. Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. King votes aye, 501. 38-21 definitive subdivision plan for 69 Great Neck Road. This also has requested a continuance. Boy, February 28th is going to be a busy night. I would entertain a motion to continue 38-21 69 Great Neck Road to February 28th.
Move.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz, did I miss that, Mr. Schultz?
I frog in my throat. Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Frogs have been in the pond. Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
and Mr. King votes aye, 501. 39-21, site plan review, 59 Main Street. Is there someone here for the applicant?
Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. Which is Warren QOBZ LLC for the project located 59 Main Street.
My notes basically surround a traffic report and or the possible need for a traffic study. Does any of the board wish to weigh in on this subject matter and or the applicant?
Well, on behalf of the applicant, I think we can weigh into to some degree on it. I know that at that prior meeting, there was discussion and there was direction given to us to prepare some type of traffic report. I don't think there was much discussion as to the contents or what was intended to be studied, like traffic counts, for example, in certain areas and what have you. So I think there was, we first of all, we'd like to discuss the true need for the study. I think one of the first things that we would like to point out, and I think everybody's pretty much well aware of it, is that it is, the project is likely to have some impact on traffic. I mean, to what degree I suspect a traffic study prepared, would identify that. But I think that, when we start to look back at some of the things in town, just reflecting back to projects that have been occurring in the village district, this is a Village 1 project. Villages are typically walking districts and what have you. And, if you look back at the number of restaurants that we have in the center of town, I dare say that there may be one or two that has some dedicated parking for their own restaurant. The vast majority of them, and I think there's 6 or 7 that are downtown. I think the vast majority do not have any parking that's designated as solely for the purpose of the restaurant. And I think that when we start to, we have talked to just let me qualify it, but we have talked to a traffic consultant. We know what the range and value of that exercise would be. We know the time frame that it would take, and the time frame is pretty much I would say a showstopper at this point for what's desired to be done down there under the schedule that's here. We'd be required to do traffic study in the summer to get some baseline information as to summertime conditions. I mean, they certainly are going to be different than the conditions that we see right now. But in any event, it is something that someone, I'm certain, would be interested in knowing what occurs in the summer months. So when we reflect back on, some of the other projects, some of the other things in town, we start to think that would funds be better spent on mitigation, with the understanding that traffic will have some impact. I'm not certain if it's going to be substantial or not, but mitigation will be required in some way, shape, or form. And if we look around in the area, there's not much room to conduct any structural mitigation on our site. I think we've maximized that out with respect to parking, what have you. And I think that, there's probably more opportunity to institute some mitigation in the form of, traffic control at Main Street where it intersects Main Street. And, whether that traffic control is through a traffic control device. I think I mentioned at the last hearing that I felt that push button and the crosswalk provided a certain amount of traffic control at that intersection. I mean, I know from my own firsthand experience, I see that on a pretty regular basis, that when people are in that crosswalk,
Jane, let's answer the phone. Give me this information out.
Aaron, could you mute that person, please?
Yeah, I did. Bill, I accidentally muted you back, so you can unmute. I unmuted the person that was talking. And Mike King, I'm going to mute you back.
Okay. I'm all set now. So that was one of the things that we were looking at. We really wanted to have a little further discussion with the planning board. I mean, it was, the last meeting, there wasn't really much discussion. So I think we'd like to, get a sense from the planning board, what you really are looking.
Yeah, he can't do it.
I would love to do my best. What you're really looking for, and how are we going to achieve it? But I think that when we start to look at the cost of things and what have you, mitigation, if we can do something now, it might be the better alternative. With respect to that traffic. Whether it's the other towns, they have a police detail during certain times of the year. Other places install traffic control devices, but I think that we really have to get a little bit of an understanding on the restaurant use. This type of restaurant, if we had we were taking trip generation numbers from the Institute of Traffic Engineers handbook, we'd be coming up with variety of different numbers at different times of the day. I think one of the more significant things, at least what I looked at, I'm not a traffic guy. I do understand it fairly well, but I'm not a traffic consultant. One of the things that, a restaurant such as this is that they consider it in that manual a quality restaurant, meaning that wait times and seating times and serving times are generally around an hour. If you go in there and sit down for dinner, you should be expecting to be an hour. And that's just not to confuse it with fast food restaurant. So, the traffic manual talks about fast food restaurants and quality restaurant. This would be a quality restaurant. When you start to look at some of the data on it, most of the seating and the calculations are based on about an hour per seating. So I suspect we could look at the number of seatings one would have throughout the course of a day, how many trips that would generate to the site, and get a sense of traffic there. But mitigation is something though that I think that we'd prefer to do, as opposed to preparing a report that may not provide. It's not going to provide the results I think anybody is would be expecting to see on that. The other thing we talked about, there were some minor plan changes that were suggested by Charlie. All those plan changes, we've made them. They're all done on the plan. I didn't submit a revised set of plans at this point, only because we would expect that there may be a few more things coming as time goes on, and the traffic could be one of those things. Another thing with the traffic is the seasonal nature of things. When the marina is not in operation, and that's likely between October and May or late April, that would free up spaces in that parking facility. I don't know how you account for that, how one would account for that condition, in an evaluation. That would be where a traffic consultant would put his input on a like type of thing on that. But that's essentially where we are with it at this point. And a little direction, I think, is what we're interested in trying to obtain from the planning board, see what we can do to continue to move it forward.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Before I asked the board for their input, I just wanted to share my 2 cents worth. At the last meeting, I was a little bit adamant about the traffic report, only because I visit Main Street usually on the weekends, and during summertime I avoid it because the traffic is so bad. But thinking about it and chatting about it with a couple others, what I found myself realizing is that, yeah, we do a traffic study and it says it's going to make 50 cars per hour turn into 52 cars per hour, and the traffic still stinks during the summertime. How do you fix it? And I don't see my own personal belief is you don't. It's the nature of Wareham. Google and Waze has driven everybody off of Route 28 down Main Street so that they can go to Austin or what to the Cape. So I tend to agree with you from my own personal standpoint, Bill. I don't think the value of spending $25,000 or $30,000 for a traffic study to have the study tell us what we already know is money well spent. And you touched on the button operated crosswalk. I think that's a good idea. Maybe it helps people park over on Merchant's Way and take a nice leisurely walk over to the restaurant, or after they leave the restaurant, they go for a walk down Main Street and they can actually get across the road without being run down. I think that's a great idea. So I wanted to share my thoughts. I kind of had an epiphany of my original concerns that the study was absolutely needed, and I no longer have that opinion anymore. I think mitigation is definitely, if we're going to spend Mr. Warren's money, I think that's the place to spend it. So having my 2 cents worth, and is there anybody on the board that would like to weigh in?
I would. Michael, I agree with you 100%. I think it'd be a waste of Mr. Warren's money. The traffic report is going to tell us there's going to be a lot of traffic. It's the summertime. We know there's going to be a lot of traffic. Hopefully there's more because the restaurant is successful. A traffic study is a waste of his money. I don't see any good to come with it. The intersection at Main Street is the problem. Whether there's a button, a light, they should repaint it at least and have it a directional left and right. I think maintenance could do that. I support going forward, not wasting any time talking about it. I think it's a no-brainer. It really is. Wareham in the summer is going to be busy. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment?
Chairman, Mr. Schultz, I'd like to speak. So yes, Mr. Madden and Mr. King have made compelling arguments. And thinking about it, my request or my desire for a traffic study was perhaps poorly articulated. It's not so much that I want to see counts. I guess what I'm hoping to see is a traffic mitigation plan, if that's a better way to say it. So if we could work together to come up with a way to make this restaurant successful, I do, but as we've identified, the intersection at Main Street is an issue. That crosswalk at that location, I think, is dangerous, and having more turning cars at that intersection will make it worse. So I would, what I'm looking for is a way to make this project successful. Through traffic mitigation, or through understanding what we can do about the traffic at that corner, pedestrian traffic included. So if we can find a way to work together to discuss it, I don't think we can just stipulate they put a stoplight in, because that's a state road, right? That's Route 6.
It's not state managed in the center of town.
Oh, okay. So we could work with you in the town and come up with mitigation strategies then.
Are we the right people to do that mitigation study, Bill?
What's that, Mike?
I said, I don't think we're experts to decide what the mitigation should be. Shouldn't we use a traffic consultant in that stage?
Yeah, I think if I could just interject a thought. I mean, you know, there's structural measures and there's non-structural measures, and really our menu that we can pick from is very restricted due to where we are and what we have down there. Certainly don't object to having a bona fide traffic person discuss mitigation with us. And I think that it would be, you know, a suggestion I would have is that we could at least come up with a traffic mitigation plan, what we think would be beneficial to that whole situation, run it by get a consultant on board to work with us on that and present something to the planning board. And I think, I don't know if you all remember, but remember when Main Street used to just run into South Main Street before it was converted to a 90-degree turning movement, when South Main Street basically went down Main Street. You know, we worked with the town, we worked with the fire department, we worked with the police department, municipal maintenance, and we realigned that intersection, working with Toby Hospital, the ambulance, police, fire, and EMS.
Well,
And
I think the new entrance to Toby Hospital is going to solve a lot of the problems also, Bill.
Yes, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yep, definitely.
It's making a whole different equation with the change to the Toby Hospital entrance.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think all those things, you know, the changes of things, what things have evolved to over time, you know, just weigh it out, see what we have for potential mitigation, come back before you. I think we may have a little time on our hands with a few other things that we're looking at on the plan and the site. But I would like to be able to present something for discussion with the planning board on what some potential mitigation measures may consist of.
That sounds
That would be good with
promising.
me.
Yeah, I agree.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question of Mr. Madden?
Absolutely.
Bill, have you looked at all into what opportunities there might be for off-site parking? And
yes,
what the issues might be for parking on Main Street itself?
We've looked at, you know, the potential for off-site sources and what have you. And the only thing that really comes into mind is the walking distance. It's not a tremendous walking distance, but in inclement weather or seasonally, it might be a little bit different, hard for some people to deal with. But we've looked at that. We basically remember how Verilife was handled, and we look at what was done at Verilife, and you might all recall how that evolved into something a little bit different today than what it was when they first opened. For good or bad, I think that, you know, at least from my point of view, I'm on Main Street all day, every day, and I see quite a bit. I thought that worked out all right. I think that using that methodology of, here, let's deal with this, let's try this mitigation effort first, and let's see what happens. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't work, then we know that we have to move on. I mean, you learn quickly what works and what doesn't work. So, but yes, Charlie, the short answer is yes, we have looked at that.
Hello.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment on the traffic mitigation
Sure.
traffic study?
Yes, I'm Kim Walsh and I live next door, British Landing, 53 Main Street. And my background is in parking and commercial real estate. My concern is that they mentioned that there'll be 20 to 25 employees with only 46 parking spaces. So I'm hoping that somebody looks at that and says, where is everybody going to park? I mean, that leaves you with 20 spaces for the public. So
Bill has the app.
If the mitigation, I mean, I'm just wondering if the mitigation would include, I don't know, looking at that possibility of, and you just mentioned offsite parking, which is something, you know, we do in Boston all the time. We negotiate with hospitals and parking garages to bring employees to offsite parking. So maybe that would be something he needs to look at as well. But I would love to be involved at all, or get more people involved as far as this mitigation of traffic, because I can send you hundreds of photos and videos of people who try to pass each other on Main Street at this point, and you can't get by. If there's people, I know, if there's people parked on either side, even on one side, or if a commercial truck is coming down the road, which we're going to be dealing with this 6,500 square foot project for a long time. So I think, I don't know, it's even as far as emergencies go. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're put the Kim. I mean, through you, Mike. You know, I understand what you're talking about. I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, I'm here every day.
Yes.
7 days a week, at all crazy hours. I see exactly what you're talking about. I mean, there was even, you know, discussion way back when, should heavy truck traffic be prohibited from driving downtown? You know, I mean, that's a discussion that was had, you know, many years ago, you know, and is it fair to have somebody have to drive all around Route 28 because they need to get over to, I don't know, Minot Ave someplace, you know, like Cape Cod Shipbuilding, just for an example, you know. So there's a lot of options, but those are the types of mitigating measures, you know, that's another type of measure that we can discuss and bring forward for, you know, for debate.
So I guess I'm just not real familiar on the process where it goes from now and how much the public are, you know, how much input we have. And also, I just want to say one thing is what I've heard. I want to see this project very successful, and my neighbors do as well. And I've heard such great things about Danny Warren and how he wants to do everything, you know, on the, I guess, up and up. And, you know, so why wouldn't you hire a traffic consultant and get somebody in here to take a look? And maybe that could be the best contribution that Danny Warren makes, other than this gorgeous project he's proposing for this whole area, because, you know, I don't know, it's bad.
All right, thank you, Kim. Mr. Slavin?
Thank you. Just so everybody knows, this is Alan Slavin, selectman for the town of Wareham. I'm also by the selectmen, you know, represent the planning board as well on the board. Let me go through a few things for you. The parking issue has been something which has really occurred because of the marijuana facility, which became a medical facility first. The state of Massachusetts, in their infinite wisdom, decided that medical can also get retail. And of course, the facility that we placed on Lower Main Street originally had no provision for retail or any idea of the volume. Unfortunately, I'm not blaming the planning board, but the zoning for marijuana is a problem as far as medical versus retail. Medical is only allowed in a certain area, which is institutional. Verilife would be happy to move at any time at all if you would take medical and change the zoning to allow it to be in the same area as retail. They've had 3 or 4 locations they were happy to move to, but can't. So the traffic as far as marijuana goes could be solved by a simple change in our zoning laws. You don't need a traffic study or anything else to make that happen. Next up, I've been working with the town and with Mr. Warren. There's 2 pieces of property on Lower Main Street. Between the 2 properties, there's probably 60, I'd say 50 spaces for cars. We're in negotiations with the hospital, and we're in negotiations with another company that owns a piece of property. I can't guarantee you this will come to fruition, but there's a good chance that will take care of his parking issue and other issues. And since we're talking with people from British Landing, that project was also, when it was done, it was designed for 1 car per apartment. As we all know, there's probably 2 or 3 cars per apartment. And if you go down to British Landing, they park on both sides of the street, which is way too narrow when they're on both sides. They don't have sufficient parking either. Maybe they want to step up also and contribute to a parking study to solve the issue, because it's theirs as much as anybody else on that street. So my comment really is simply this, that the way the road is set up, the hospital is no longer entrancing off that corner anymore. It will take a lot of traffic away from there and a lot of issues. That bump out the way they designed it makes it difficult to turn in and out, and it's a tough intersection there. I'm sure the town would be happy to work something out to have a crosswalk there with a button or something to turn the light on. As we all know, if you walk on Main Street, at any place, even with a crosswalk, you take your life in your hands in the crosswalk because people just don't look, they don't care, and they go through it. So the idea of having a traffic study for this part of town is not going to come up with anything because of the bottleneck. The only way to take care of it is to have a place where people can park and easily have access both directions. So that's my comment for today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Whiteside.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and I'm here to support the application of Mr. Warren. As Mr. Slavin said, and I'm not going to repeat what he said, but he said most of what I would have said. This is a very important project for the town as a whole. If you are familiar with the planning of Wareham Village 1 rezoning, and I'm sure you are, this project really is a cornerstone to the revitalization of Main Street, a total cornerstone. Toby's traffic will be taken care of in a far better way once their emergency room is completed and once the entrances have all been rerouted to be going in the right direction. The crosswalk idea is a great one. And I just would say that we all know that in the summertime, the population more than doubles in this town. We know that traffic is being rerouted through Main Street. We know it's even being rerouted through High Street to get to the Cape and to avoid 28. I don't think that having increased traffic is a good reason to not let this gentleman go ahead with the project at this time. In fact, we want more traffic in Main Street. We want to have more activity in Main Street. We want to have more businesses, and we want to have more people taking advantage of those businesses. So I would just add to what Alan had said. And if I can, I know that the person who is under iPad 4 is a summer resident. I don't know how you raise your hand on an iPad, but she has texted me if she could speak. Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand I saw up was Miss Demaro.
Yes, hello. Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'd
Go
just
ahead,
like,
you can.
I'd like to make a few comments as a resident of the Pinehurst Beach community. I think all of us would love to see Danny's project go through. He did a project last summer in our neighborhood. It was very successful, and he was a pleasure to work with. Aside from that, I think all of us that live in this community know that most of the traffic at that end of Main Street is either the marina, British Landing, or our neighborhood. And the traffic problem really is the marijuana. They tend to park in the street where they shouldn't be parking. They tend to park at the fish pier where they shouldn't be parking. And they tend to come into our community, turn around, make you turn to the middle of the street and go back out. So I don't think Mr. Warren's project is the problem. I think the Verilife is the problem. And I think the parking of multiple cars along the area by British Landing, as well as commercial vehicles, and I know that there are owners within British Landing that are parking these cars. That's where the problem lies. I think a traffic study is a waste of good money that could be spent to help this project along. And I hope, as well as many of our community members hope, that Danny's project goes through. It will not only improve the community, but it will also attract people, other retail businesses, to all the empty, vacant buildings along Main Street. So I'm hoping that this does nothing but help our town and raise our property values. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I see? I don't see any. Am I missing anything, Aaron? I don't see any more hands.
No new hands as ones that are up, but I think Ms. Whiteside mentioned that the person under iPad 4 wanted to speak. So if they're unmuted.
I think I am unmuted at this time. Yes, I am a summer resident at British Landing, and I would be in favor of this project, and get rid of Verilife would be my first choice, just like the previous speaker said. It sounds like a great project. The only thing is the parking issue. But if Mr. Slavin had said, if you have another option, you could put the employees down there and that take care of 20 spots. And I think you might have just enough parking so you wouldn't have to go through the traffic study. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand. I'm just sorry. Can I take
if you could,
all right,
you've already spoken, Ms. Walsh, if you can make it.
I'm just making sure that we're included and we are informed when these studies come up so that we can be involved at some point or understand what's going on. Not the involvement, but yeah.
I mean, any discussions will always be posted as part of a planning board meeting. So all you'll need to do is just watch the agendas and you'll know when there's subject matter of interest.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we've pretty much covered the traffic mitigation discussion. I think there were some good points that came out of that.
Excuse me, Mr. King, this is Jim Manise. Have my hand up. How are you doing tonight?
Yep.
I agree with what everybody's saying, and the issue is, I mean, I think you already discussed it, but what are the mitigation measures that would be looking towards get there? No, I think it's who's talking there. Want to mute, please? So, you know, it doesn't matter if it's British Landing, the marina, Verilife. The issue is traffic in the summer, and how do we mitigate the issues at that corner? And I'm all for, as everybody's saying, trying to hire a consultant to come up with a mitigation plan. And if we could just move forward with that, regardless of everything else in the past, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I do see a note here about Charlie's peer review letter from 124. Charlie, is there anything on that we need to discuss?
I don't have it in front of me right now. Mike, I remember that Bill Madden said a few minutes ago that he had some changes that he made to the plan. I presume that they are in response to what I put in the letter. So unless he wants to share what those are, I don't have anything specific.
Okay.
There were a couple
He
of
did
things that,
mention,
yeah, there were a couple of things that I had put on the plan about opening up of that most westerly entrance a little bit. There were some other things in there which he may want to address when he does the whole thing.
okay, all right,
Sort of
good.
defer to what he'd like to do.
If I could just interject a thought, I think that Charlie's letter was a good letter. We accommodated, I want to say everything on his letter. And Danny Warren, I think, would like to speak also. Just I don't know if you noticed that, perhaps give him a chance to interject a thought or two.
What do you say?
Do you want to interject?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
there is a couple of thoughts. And when I first
Go
got
ahead, Dave.
involved with this, can you hear me? I said, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When I first got involved with to buy the property, I thought it was a beautiful location, and I grew up in Wareham, and I thought what a great thing to do. I was in the process of getting ready to buy a hotel down in Hyannisport with the money on the ocean, but I kept thinking, come back to this. Then I looked at another property on the ocean, and I came back to this, and now the money, and I don't know if you guys understand. I don't believe you do. I know Alan Slavin understands because he's the one that told me about it. The money is in a tax program. And I don't know if there's enough time to even do this project now. COVID has eaten up so much time, and it's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault. It's just COVID has eaten up so much time. One of the buildings, the big main building, I got notified today, the price tag has gone up over $1 million since I made the deal to build it. And that's not to build the whole building. That's to build the frame and put a roof on it. The interior of the building and the roofing and the furnishing out of it is another gone up almost $500,000. And none of that is the deal breaker. The deal breaker is there's not enough time left now to build the thing and avoid $1 million plus fine from the federal government because I didn't get the job done in time. And I've talked to the people in Philadelphia that are running the programs for the government, and they said, we don't know what you're going to do, Dan, but you've got yourself in a real trap. And just to say it, I'm worried to death about the location too over Verilife. Those are not Wareham people, and those are not nice people. Last week, I was down there moving some of that snow for myself and a couple of the neighbors, and a lady was stuck in the snow on the side. And instead of stopping to help her, they wanted to give her a cussing because she couldn't get her car to move. I mean, it's bad. And I was down there today, and I saw it again today. Down there 2 weeks ago, I saw a car come down off the hill and almost get broadsided by another car. Down there today, I saw the same thing happen again. So as the man that owns the property, now I'm afraid of the property. And I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. But I'm out of time, totally out of time. So continue on from my side of the table. I'm at the end of the rope, and I have no choice in that matter. I have to find something there that will be able to be done, built, finished, and done in the next 14 months or face a fine that's beyond belief. So I don't know where to go with it. Luckily, I bought another property on Wareham that I can sink some of the money in, but I put several $1 million in Rockland Trust Bank to be specifically spent in one place and one place only, Wareham, Massachusetts. And it's not, I got to say it again, Wareham has been great to deal with. Every person I've dealt with there has been incredible. Everybody's tried, but everything you go to do, it's just been blocked and blocked and blocked and blocked because the fact that people can't get face to face. You couldn't have a meeting. None of us planned on COVID. Nobody thought COVID was, God knows if we did, we'd have gone someplace else or done something about it. But the point is the calendar is ticked. I was informed just yesterday by Vermont Frames that their bill would go from, one of their bills would go from $650,000 to $1.2 million. if we go forward. And I don't know what to do now. So I'm in a situation now, I can't break ground. And if I did break ground, I can't get done in time. I've got sitting, I told Ken Buckman this the other day, I have $100,000 worth of brand new restaurant equipment sitting in a warehouse in Avon because I bought it as part of the energy program in November because I really thought this would be settled in time that I could break ground. And every meeting, and please don't hear this wrong, I'm not complaining about you guys at all. But I'm learning the hard way that all this stuff takes way too long. So, and to be honest with you, put yourself in my shoes. Would you spend $3 million there knowing now that there's not enough parking in the town to support it? No. Would you spend $1 million there knowing there's not enough facilities in the town to support it? That's also no. But I have to do something there, and I have to do it soon. And I've already said way more than I was going to say tonight, but I am an open book. I don't hold stuff back. So I don't know what to say, but well, I'm not going to say anymore. I think you understand the frustration and where I'm at with it, and it's not even frustration. It's just all business. There's funds I can put the money in to avoid the fine. I don't really want to put a couple of $1 million into Brockton. I don't want to put a couple of $1 million into New Bedford, but I've got to do something. So I think me and Mr. Madden have our work cut out for us to figure out what we can and can't do and how we can meet some timelines. But the timelines won't move. I mean, the new administration has been crystal clear. They're not going to support an extremely successful program that was brought in by the last administration. It's just not going to happen. So that's what I think.
Thank you, Danny. We appreciate your input. It's valuable information for sure.
I just think it's a shame to see what could have been unbelievable get dwindled down to, well, that's okay. And that was never my vision. Well, my first vision for this place was an ice cream stand and kids playing baseball. Maybe that's what it needs to be. I don't know. But I don't even know if I'd want my kid playing baseball knowing that we're attracting drug addicts from all over the damn state to come to our main street. I mean, that was, if I would have understood Verilife better, I would have never bought it. I had the police down there twice last summer, and it could have been there every day if we would have called them. Because the people coming out of there are bad news. We had a fight come out of Verilife and roll over into Bessie Park and then wind up on my land to the point that they turned the cruiser away. And when I called the station and told them, I don't know who that lady was, but sent a lady cop down here. They didn't turn her away. She took care of business. But it's just an awkward place. And you put the trespassing signs up and they rip them down. They catch the little fish. They see the game warden or the harbor master. They throw them in the weeds and let them die. That's an everyday occasion there. And there's nobody can pick up the beer bottles, the whiskey bottles, and the needles as fast as they're left around that area. And that's all scary as hell when you're getting ready to spend that kind of money. And the parking thing, we all know it's bad. I've been trying to buy more parking in the area, as Alan said, for a long time. And now Alan has Mr. Slavin, I'm sorry, has stepped in and he's really been helpful. And I didn't ask him to step in. He just did when he realized I wasn't getting any place with it. But no matter what we do, we can't change Wareham. I remember when I was a young boy and I first came to Wareham from a big farm in Illinois. I never seen so much traffic in my entire life as there was in Main Street, Wareham, before they built the highway. We had the dancing cop right there in the center of town, making sure everybody got where they needed to go. I personally would like to see all that traffic back because that means business. All right, guys. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Anything else before we move on this? So based on a discussion, Bill and Dan, you're going to work on a traffic mitigation plan as opposed to spending money on a traffic study. And Bill, you've amended the plans to reflect Charlie's input on his letter from the 24th. And when we come back, I'm assuming you'll want to be back at the next meeting on the 28th. the revised plans, the study, the mitigation plan, and possibly from the board. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit all the,
Okay.
hit all the points.
Okay. So having said that, I'd entertain a motion to continue 39-21 59 Main Street to the meeting of February 28th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, second by Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett? Was that an aye? Did I miss him?
No, I'm just trying to think, Mike. I just don't think we can get everything done that day.
Oh, well, it seems like every time we get together now, I look at the agenda and I go, we're not going to finish all of this. Right. And inevitably, every time we sit down, there's a ton of continuance requests and half the agenda disappears anyway. So, and I don't think it's fair, to be honest, having gone through this process and then listening to Dan's input, I don't think it's fair to push it out past that. I think we would want to try to get it in for the 28th, and even maybe somewhat high on the agenda order, so that we can ensure that we can act on this.
I couldn't agree more, but it seems like we get backed up every week. We continue, there's new continuance, and I don't know how many we have on here that continue, probably 15 or so. So, anyway, Mike,
well,
I know you know my concerns, and I know we're going to work on them. It's just we got to do something. But I will say aye.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste?
Aye.
Ms. Gleason?
Aye.
Mr. King votes aye, 501. Bill and Dan, we look forward to seeing you coming back on the 28th, and with high hopes of, possibly giving you the green light to get started on this project.
Very good. Appreciate all your time and effort. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, do I have permission from the board to meet with Bill Madden to go over this plan ahead of the 28th? So if there's any outstanding issues, we can sort of put them to bed.
I think that's a fabulous idea. So that come the 28th, we're locked and loaded.
Okay,
Agreed.
thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Schultz, you wanted to bring up a bylaw item?
Please, if we're ready.
Yep.
As you know, I'm representing the planning board on the solar bylaw study committee, writing the update to section 590. And that bylaw subsection is specifically targeted at regulating large-scale ground-mounted solar arrays. But during our public hearings and our discovery process, the issue of large-scale utility battery storage systems has come up. And these are not accessory structures for solar. These are standalone large, for example, the one in Carver is a 6-acre battery. It will be a battery system that takes 6 acres of ground. And right now, our bylaws are silent on that matter. And I've been advised by Mr. Buckland, because they're silent, they're not going to be permitted. But rather than leaving it to that vacuum, I would like to propose that the Wareham Planning Board sponsor the following update, and I'm not sure which section it goes in, but we can figure that out, to the zoning bylaws to give it the town time to properly prepare. So the wording would be Notwithstanding any other provision of the zoning bylaw to the contrary, the town hereby adopts a temporary moratorium to May 31st, 2023 on the new principal use of land for any commercial utility-grade battery storage installation, effective immediately upon town vote, provided that such moratorium shall not apply to previously approved specially permitted projects, provided that any such amendment shall not increase the footprint. During the moratorium period, the town shall conduct a review of battery bylaws in towns of similar size, undertake a planning process that addresses the potential impacts of large-scale utility-grade battery installations in the town of Wareham, consider the long-term storage objectives for battery installations and their impact on health, safety, and welfare of Wareham citizenry, and to determine how the town shall reasonably regulate battery electric installations, and finally, to create a bylaw or bylaw revision that shall protect the town of Wareham of impacts of commercial utility-grade battery storage installation. So that would be this very simple wording of the bylaw. Right now, there are no applications in the offing, although I did speak with Derek, and there's one being considered up on Tohonet Mill on the dam there. They're trying to do utility revitalization up there. And he mentioned that there was another one that's been coming in and out over off of Charge Pond Road. So right now we don't have one, but there are people that are beginning to talk about this kind of implementation. And I do believe the energy industry is looking at these utility scale batteries as a way to meet, all of the challenges they're facing. So I just thought if we had a chance to get proactive, that was my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Ken, does any of that wording sound problematic, or is that something that you think we should consider?
I think it's something you should consider, and I think it's written well as is. I think you can take it up at the next meeting, think about it over the next 2 weeks, and come to a decision as to whether or not you want to submit it in the next round for town meeting.
I will send everybody a written version of that language.
You beat me to the punch. That's exactly what I was going to ask for. Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for considering.
Okay. So the bylaw committee, Kyle just chimed in. Community preservation committee, Sam, have you got anything for us?
We've been working on Little Harbor for the next town meeting. A lot of work went in it from a lot of people. It did pass eventually on the CPC funding with $1 million cash and $1 million note. And we'll see what happens on the 22nd. Capital planning,
cool.
We haven't had a meeting, but one in January, nothing scheduled yet.
Okay. I would love to chime in on that. I am going to hang my head and say that I've missed the last 3 meetings. All of them, I found myself either flying to Phoenix or Chicago to business associates, that the timing just took me away from meetings. So I have nothing to offer. Having said that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hold on, please. Hold on, Mike. I'd like
Sure.
to at least recognize Richard Swenson. He's been a great member of the board, a great member of the community. Working with him for only 10 months, I've worked with, I think, 10 committees, last count. He's been the best chairman I've worked with. He's been fair. He's been always prepared, always knowledgeable. I think it's a great loss to the town of Wareham. I wish him well.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. Very well put.
Motion we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Having said that, I'll take a vote. Mr. Corbett?
Yay.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Baptiste,
Aye.
Ms. Gleason,
Aye.
Mr. King votes aye, 501. Thank you, everybody. And again, I appreciate you being easy on me tonight. Hopefully, we'll get through the rookie season and kind of get into a groove. So thanks so much. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you, Mike.